I grew all of these from seed. Oh my gosh. Last year I grew a couple of onions. They were really good, but when I transplanted them, they were these tiny little strands of grass, like these tiny little strands of grass that for a while didn't do anything. And this time I actually got them to a good size before transplanting. So I'm very excited to plant them with you. Let's go. And I'm gonna be planting them in containers, several containers actually. I already planted out these 2 containers a few days ago, and the reason I wanted to do it over on this side of the yard is because I feel like they get a good amount of sun here all year round, whereas the main vegetable garden is a little bit more protected from the sun. And last year when I planted onions in the garden beds, I didn't really get anything, but I got a good amount from the containers that were over on this side. The variety that I have right here in these 2 is the Cipollini onion, and I started these August 14th. They're still drooping over a little bit because I just transplanted them out like 3-4 days ago, but the reason they also look a little bit floppy is because of my cats. They seem to parkour all across the garden, and they especially love stepping all over the containers. This is not the only tray of onions or leeks that I'm going to be planting. I have another tray in my grow tent that should be ready in the next few weeks. I just wanted to do a good succession planting. So I'm planting these at the end of October, and then sometime mid-November to end of November, I'll put out another bunch. That way I could have a good amount of onions because we love onions in my family. I especially love just an onion on its own. Not raw, but like grilled, or I pop it into the air fryer, just slice it into 4. Not all of these are onions. Some of these are leeks. Like these are the Bulgarian giant leeks. These are also leeks. Dang, how many leeks? Tadorna leeks. Okay, hold on now. Tadorna leeks. Jesus. I thought most of these would be onions. Okay, so these are the red Creole onions. Look how beautiful. One thing I will say about onions is that I feel like it took a while for them to finally start popping up. For the longest time, they were these tiny little slivers that looked like grass blades, barely, because they were just so skinny. Now look at them, they're gorgeous. These are some Savannah sweet onion, another Savannah sweet onion, Texas early white onion, and another Texas early white onion. One thing to keep in mind when planting onions is where you live, because there's short day onions, intermediate day onions, and long day onions. And I had no idea what any of that meant. And I really honestly don't exactly know what that means. All I know is that where I live, I need to plant short day onions. And I was planting long day onions, so I was getting absolutely nothing. In each little cell, I popped about 2 to 3 seeds. In the past, I've tried doing it in a tray and just scattering a bunch of seeds everywhere, and that didn't really work out for me. Not sure why. This really seemed to work for me. And the trays that I'm using are from Bootstrap Farmer. I liked the colors that they had, so I bought some. And this is what the roots look like. They're beautiful. So all I'm gonna do is gently tease them apart like this. And now I have 4 onions that came from one little cell. This one's really small, but I think it should still work. So this is the size of onion transplants that I'm putting out this year. Last year, they were smaller than this. So I'm gonna start separating all of mine before I start planting them. And I just sort of tickle the soil off and then gently tease them apart. Just like that. Out of one 6-cell tray, I got 14 onions. That's not bad. And because I bought the packet of onion seeds, I probably paid a couple cents for all of those onions, which is awesome. Makes me feel so happy. And Girl Matt says it's technically free. I'm gonna tease the other tray, but I'm gonna bring you a little closer just so I can show you a better look. So one thing I like about these trays is that I can just pop out the bottom and then the whole little cell comes out. So I just gently tickle off the soil. Onion plants are very forgiving, so if you break a couple roots, it's not a big deal. And their roots also seem to be pretty shallow compared to other plants. Once I have most of the soil off, I can gently tease them apart. And there you go. Dun, dun, dun. One of the biggest mistakes that I made last year when I was planting onions is I didn't even have irrigation set up on the containers either. I thought I would be fine just hand watering, but I'm very forgetful, so oftentimes the onions would start drying up. I wouldn't notice until I came out here and they were all brown. So only a couple made it. So this year I made sure that every single container has irrigation before I start planting in it. That way I don't forget and I don't lose any transplants. Curious to see how many of this variety I'll have this year. And onions here in the low desert, you can definitely transplant sometime in November. I'm doing it now just because November is going to be a really busy month and I know I won't be able to get to them. Plus, I have the shade cloth up, so I'm not too worried because I don't have the sun blasting down on all of these. Oh, and then this one's just one. So that the whole root ball is just for this one onion plant. Out of the red Creole onion, I have 27. Next up is the Texas early white onion. Oh, I think I'm going to have significantly less of these because some of these cells didn't have any germination. They smell very oniony too, the transplants. Very, very strong onion smell, which I'm not complaining because it smells absolutely delicious. So out of the Texas early white onion, I only got 17 onions. Not bad, not the greatest germination, but I'm excited to try them either way. And since I started more, I know I'm going to have more than enough onions at the end of the year, hopefully. The last variety is called Savannah Sweet Onion. Oh, this one germinated really, really good. I have at least 3 onions in every single cell. So this definitely makes up for the lack of onions from the Texas early white variety. And all of these onion seeds I started indoors in the grow tent. October is a good month to plant onions from seed outdoors, but because I have birds coming into the garden all the time, I feel like I wouldn't get anything germinating. And indoors, it's easier for me to monitor them. And this way I also have a head start to get them as big as possible. Look at those beautiful white roots. Oh, these are gorgeous. I'm so happy with them. And then here's the last tray of the Savannah sweet onions. And I think most of my onion seeds I got from Haas Tools. There's one tray that only has 1 onion, but the majority of them had multiples, good sized multiples, which makes me feel so happy. Ooh, this one has 4. I got 33 of the Savannah sweet onions. That is amazing. So now that I have them all separated out, it's time to plant. Very similar to the garlic, I'm going to take my dibber and I'm going to make a couple of holes in the container. And these containers also have been amended with a layer of compost and azomite and fertilizer, so they should be ready to go. And I haven't planted anything else in them. Hello, Mr. Levi. Can I help you, sir? Can I help you? Levi, get your butt away from there. And then this is Mr. Levi. I think I'm going to plant some Savannah sweet onions. I'm not going to prune the roots or anything. I didn't do that last year. You can start to see the white of where they're bulbing up, so that I'm just going to plant them maybe up to here. I just want to make sure I get all the roots in there. What happened, Mr. Levi? What happened, buddy? I'm not too careful about the spacing. Last year, I grew some really big sized onions in tiny 3-gallon containers. I'm not a numbers person, so I just kind of guesstimate as I go along. I was able to plant 12 in this container, and it looks like there's another onion growing over here. I'm just gonna leave those there. I always feel so bad whenever a plant is like, trying really hard to make it. I don't have the heart to pull it out. Oh, and this is a dried okra pod. Oh, I'm gonna save the seeds. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Place a label down, and I wanna make sure my irrigation is down and ready to go. Having the irrigation set up from the beginning makes it easier so that I can see where to space my onions, because doing it after is way more tedious. I learned that from last year. 1, 2, 5, 9, 12. Okay, let's start popping them in there. I'm probably gonna have enough to do another container of these Savannah white onions. And there we have it. That container is also planted up now. First, I'm gonna get these asparagus ferns out of the way. They have grown so beautifully and they tend to go very wild. In this container, I'm gonna do the Texas early white onion. In this last container, I'm gonna pop in some red Creole onion. The red onion that I grew last year that I really loved was the red Tropea of Italy onion. One of the things I try to make sure I did was to plant some white, yellow, and red onions. That way I have a variety of all three. This container is all done.